Welcome back to another episode of Take a Side, the sports talk show that lets you, the viewer, choose our winners. I'm your host, Jacob Polacheck, and due to inclement weather, we'll be filming today's show by Zoom. As always, be sure to get on Sided.co and the Sided Debates app for your chance to climb up that leaderboard and take home a $25 Amazon gift card. Today, we're joined by a very special guest, Brady Silverwood. Brady, thank you for coming on.
Yes, of course, Jacob. Thanks for having me on, man.
And Brady recently completed a 378-mile run across Costa Rica. It took you only 15 days, setting a new personal record of 56 miles on your final day. Before we get into these debates, you mind talking a little bit about what that experience was like overall?
Yeah, of course. So this was my second country that I've ever ran across, and it's definitely different. I had never been to Costa Rica before. My Spanish isn't that hot. I'm not that good at speaking Spanish, and yeah, I mean, it was such an up and down experience overall. Amazing. I learned a lot. Challenged myself so much. Like you said, I ran 56 miles on the last day, and before Costa Rica, the most miles I'd ever ran in one sitting was like 28. So I literally doubled that. And yeah, it was a special experience, and again proved to myself that I'm capable of pushing the limits and doing more than I think I can.
So as you mentioned, you completed that run across the United States, totaling over 3,300 miles. Given that your U.S. run was a lot farther, but this recent run, you suffered some setbacks, including spraining your ankle. So overall, looking back at both runs, which would you say was more difficult?
That's a good question. Because the Costa Rica one, it was far less days, but the miles per day were a lot higher. So I probably averaged like 25 miles a day in Costa Rica, even though like I think the last I did, I think, 7 back-to-back marathons. So I was just like putting in the miles in Costa Rica. So my body was really exhausted. But the US one, you're just talking about the days, man. It's like, you could easily, I think they're both tough. I'm not going to sit here and say running a country is easy just because it isn't. There's a lot of mental focus that you need to have to do it. But the USA one, I'll tell you that, like, if I slacked off or lost focus and really got distracted during it, it really set me back. I remember there was one point where I did the math and I was like, oh, it might take me like 60 days to finish my run across the US. And so I put up like a calendar in the RV and it said like 60, and then I would exit out after a run and then put 59. And up until that point, I'd never been doing that. And I remember it really messed with me, like made me just focus on how many days I had left as opposed to like staying in the moment and just focusing on the task I had in front of me, which was just go out and run today. And so, yeah, I'd say the USA one completely, probably harder in that mental aspect of being patient with the process. But Costa Rica, I mean, it was challenging me physically. I've never challenged myself like that before. So it was a good, they both had their difficulties, I'd say. Yeah.
Now, looking back at this Costa Rica run, was there any one moment throughout that stood out to you? Any specific moment that really stood out?
Yeah. You know, so around like, it was like on day 6, the first mile is when I, sprained my ankle, and it's, it was the first time that I had done that. Like, I've always gotten like pain, but I've never like received pain because I like did something wrong. I didn't really do something wrong. I was just trying to avoid the oncoming traffic, these semis, and I didn't look, and like to the side of the road was like this slanted hill, and I just immediately, right when my left foot planted on it, it was on this like, slant, and then it just rolled. So I guess that was a new experience of like, oh wow, I just kind of injured myself. Um, the When I got injured in Arkansas on my USA trip, that was a lot more subtle. It was like this pain just got worse and worse, and then I think it was honestly my Achilles tendon was just so worn out from the running. Um, so I guess that was very unique, and that stood out to me. But again, when you run as much as I do and you deal with all these pains, you start to get more, it might be a weird thing to say, but like more comfortable with injury, where like it doesn't scare you that much. So again, I just like, I there's a lot that you can do as far as like icing and elevating your legs and rest, but then there's a lot that it's like, it's out of your hands, so you kind of have to just, you know I don't know what you believe in, but let God or the universe, or you need to let other things take control, I guess, um or let go in that situation. So that's what I did again, because I knew, hey, in my USA run, I thought this was going to take me out of the whole trip. And then I rested for 2 days, and then I went 50 days in a row, without a rest. So, um, yeah, I'd say that was a big turning point in the trip. And then like the next day when I ran 21 miles, that was just like, I remember it went 21, then 25, then 28. And once I went over 28, I remember the day I even did 25, I was a little stubborn that I didn't do the extra mile to make it a marathon. So, I think the USA run, I left a lot of marathons on the table just because I was kind of being conservative. I didn't, you don't want to overdo it on a trip that's that long, especially when I was dealing with injuries. So, yeah, this trip I was kind of like, once I hit that first marathon, it was like, let's you know, let's go hard and finish strong. So, yeah, I did like 28, 30, 35, 30, 30, and the last day 56, a double marathon. So, even that last day, man, like when I was around, I think it was mile 43, I'd been running for 8 hours. Up until that point in my life, the max I've ever ran was probably 6 hours, 6.5 hours. And then around, yeah, mile 43, I checked my phone. I hadn't checked my phone to see how many miles I had done. And it'd been 8 hours, and I looked and it was 43 miles. And I thought I would have been around like 35 miles. So I was super hyped that I had gone that far. And literally from mile 43 to 50, like that next hour, that was my best stretch. That was my best pace of the whole day. And I was just like, had so much energy. So I think that really, again, proved to me like, we always think that, we're going to have, we don't think we have like these reserves and this like backup energy, but we really we really have a lot more in us than we think. So um yeah, I think that gave me like a late burst on that day. The last few miles, it felt like I was just like running through quicksand. It was like, slow mo. But yeah, we got it done. And I'm telling you, man, like if that day, you told me, Brady, it's 70 miles to the border, it didn't matter to me at that point. I would have just kept running until I couldn't anymore. So um I even after doing that, I know I can do more than that. But yeah, it was a cool experience, man.
And I know a lot of people can't even really fathom what it's like to run that far. Now that you have two runs under your belt, really, what's something that surprised you about running across the country? What was really something that that caught you by surprise throughout each run?
That's a good question. All right, so this one, you're running on the road for 4 to 6 hours a day, and when that happens, you see a lot of cars, you see a lot of people, you run by all types of things, cemeteries, parks, lakes, rivers, all this bridges all the time. I'm always running over bridges. Yeah, you see a lot of things, and I guess just being observant of, like, you know, a lot of we have a lot more similarities than differences, I think. And, like, it was cool even in Costa Rica, like, some of these roads, man, were just as nice as some of the roads I run in the US. And I think the big one is, like, you know, I kind of made this joke around the US, is like, no matter what state I ran through, there was always potholes. Everyone's got their potholes, everyone's got their problems. um everyone dies in the towns I would run through, because I'd run through cemeteries all the time. And then bridges. Everyone has bridges, and I think, I don't know. I thought to myself, like, you see a lot of things that you're like, wow, I think I could pretty much go anywhere in the world and I'd see these same things. So it kind of feels like you're more connected, um, to these places, because everywhere has its borders and labels, and you know we like to think it's so much different, but when it comes down to it, we're all human and stuff. So yeah.
And now, kind of closing things out, I know you originally were supposed to run across Ireland. You've got these two major runs under your belt. Is there a dream country uh, in mind that you want to run across?
Yeah, so I'm I'm actually running across another country in, let me see how many days now. I should know how many days it is now. Anyways, March 1st I fly out, so about 2 weeks. And I won't say exactly where it is because I haven't announced it yet, but I'll give like a little hint. It's a continent that I've never been to before, and it's gonna be special. It's gonna be really cool. And the country I'm running is about 500 miles across, east to west. Um, so yeah, it's gonna be pretty groovy, and that'll be the third country. And then the fourth one, I'm thinking the fourth one would be a big one, so that would be similar in size to the US. And I have a few that I'm thinking of. um just kind of depends on, like, if I'm able to go to them with COVID and stuff. I think I should be able to. um but those are big ones. Those are big ones. So, um, yeah, this is, people are starting to see I kind of call it like the tip of the iceberg here. So if you're following my story now, or you followed it in the past, I feel like you're really, like, early to this. Um, I have a lot of big ambitions for this brand. Brady runs the world, and we're starting to get, like, sponsorships. This next trip I'm going on has pretty much been paid for from these brands. So now it's cool. I always thought to myself, I love running so much. It'd be cool to get paid to run, and now that's what's happening. So it's pretty cool.
Well, Brady, thank you again for joining me. You can find Brady's book, 9 for 9, the 9 lessons I learned running across the USA and 9 pairs of running shoes, on Amazon now. And you can find Brady on Instagram at Brady Runs the World. Brady, thank you again.
Of course, Jacob. Of course, man.
Well,
Thanks for having me, brother.
thank you. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back.